Runway or the alternatives? Which one should you actually use? I ran both through 6 real decision tests, kept a running scoreboard, and I'll tell you exactly which type of creator belongs on each one, because Runway tops the independent quality leaderboard, yet it's also the most locked down free tier in the whole category. Runway is raw editing power, and the alternatives, Sora, Kling, Synthesia, and Pexo AI, are built for finished output with way less friction. So your real decision comes down to control or convenience. Test 1, free tier lock-in. You sign up for Runway, you want to kick the tires on Gen 4.5 before you pay, and the free plan just won't run it. Not a degraded version, not a slower render. You get watermarked, silent clips on an old engine, and that's the experience driving creators out the door right now. I looked at what you actually get on Runway's free plan. Watermarked output, no audio, and an engine that isn't Gen 4.5, while alternatives like Kling and Hailuo often let you run their flagship models on the free tier with no watermark on some plans. And community consensus is pretty clear that this is the #1 pain point pushing people away from Runway. I didn't expect the free tier gap to be this clean, but the alternatives take test 1 without a fight because Runway won't even show you its best model until you pay, and that puts the alternatives up 1-0. The most straightforward win in this whole comparison. I've been deep in these tools long enough to hit every billing surprise before you do. So drop a comment if Runway's free tier has already burned you. Test 2, real cost for pro work. The number that should make you pause is the standard plan's entry price, which sounds fine until you realize Gen 4.5 burns 25 credits per second, and the standard plan only ships with 625 credits total. So do the math and you've got roughly 25 seconds of flagship video before the meter hits 0. Try to budget a real project on Runway and you'll run into the same wall I did. The credit burn is variable and opaque, so you can't reliably predict what a 60-second deliverable will cost, while alternatives with flat or per-minute pricing give you a number you can actually put in a proposal. And if you want watermarks gone on Sora, that's $200 a month for the pro tier. I went in thinking the standard plan was a reasonable entry point, but 625 credits getting you roughly 25 seconds of real Gen 4.5 output is not a reasonable entry point, so the alternatives take test 2 on cost predictability alone, and that's now 2-0. One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. Test 3, editing capability. You're a filmmaker who needs to control exactly how a character's hand moves while the background stays locked, or you want a dolly push on a specific axis with fractional precision. And the question is whether any alternative comes close to that kind of control, because most AI video tools give you a prompt and a prayer. When I looked at the editing tools side by side, Runway's motion brush gives you up to 5 independent motion zones, and director mode understands real cinematography, terms like pan, tilt, dolly, and roll with fractional precision, while alternatives generally don't have anything close to that. And community consensus across the board says Runway's editing is the best in the category, with the data to back it up. Runway takes test 3, and I didn't expect the gap to be this wide given all the noise about alternatives catching up. So the score is now Runway 1, the alternatives 2, and Runway's editing lead is honestly the only reason to stay on the platform. Test 4, publish ready workflow. You've got a script, you need a finished video with voiceover, background music, and visuals today. Not after 3 hours of post-production. And Runway generates the raw clip, then leaves you to handle the rest yourself. So the question is whether any alternative actually closes that gap, end to end. I had to run it twice to believe the difference. Pexo AI combines scripting, voiceover, music, and visuals in one workflow, so you go straight to publish without touching a separate editor. Synthesia takes that further for enterprise, where 90% of Fortune 100 companies use it for training videos inside one platform, and Runway, by comparison, needs heavy post-production for anything finished. The alternatives take Test 4 because Synthesia and Pexo AI genuinely replace the whole post-production stack, rather than just one piece of it, and that's now 3-1 with the alternatives pulling away. So the alternatives are up 3-1, but the output quality leaderboard and cost predictability tests are still ahead, and if Runway's raw video quality is far enough ahead of Sora and Kling, that gap might be worth every dollar of friction. The next number is the one that decides whether quality alone justifies staying. Test 5, Output Quality. The artificial analysis leaderboard scores every major AI video model by ELO rating, so this isn't one person's opinion, and I wanted to see exactly how far ahead it actually sits, because that number is the one thing keeping a lot of creators from switching away from Runway. The lead is more real than I expected. Runway Gen 4.5 scores 1247 ELO on the artificial analysis text-to-video leaderboard. Veo 3.1 sits at 1026, Sora 2 at 1206. So Runway is genuinely ahead on raw output quality, though the gap to Veo is smaller than the marketing suggests, and these are community-reported figures rather than a controlled lab test. Runway takes Test 5 because 1047 ELO versus 1206 for Sora 2 is a real gap on an independent leaderboard rather than a marketing claim, and that brings the score to Runway 2, the alternatives 3 with the alternatives still leading into the final test. Test 6, Cost Predictability. You're quoting a client a fixed-price video project, and you need to know what your tools will cost before you send the invoice. But with Runway, you genuinely can't know because the credit burn on Gen 4.5 is 25 credits per second, and how many seconds you'll need to hit a good output is a black box. I lost 20 minutes trying to model a realistic monthly budget for a 10-video project on Runway, and couldn't land on a number I'd trust, because the credit model is variable, so your actual spend shifts depending on how many takes you burn, while alternatives with flat or per-minute pricing let you put a real number in a spreadsheet before you start, which is a completely different working experience. The alternatives take Test 6, the final score. Alternatives 4, Runway 2, and predictable pricing is a basic requirement for any pro workflow that Runway's credit system just doesn't clear. Alright, so here's where Runway genuinely wins. Motion brush with up to 5 independent motion zones, and director mode with real cinematography terms like dolly and tilt give you editing precision no alternative comes close to, and Gen 4.5 at 1247. ELO on the independent leaderboard is the best raw output quality in the category right now. So if those two things are your priority, Runway is still your tool. Now here's where the alternatives win and why most people leaving Runway should switch. The free tier on Kling and Hailuo actually lets you test the real model. Synthesia and Pexo AI give you scripting, voiceover, music, and visuals in one workflow. So you skip the post-production marathon entirely, and flat pricing means you can budget a project before you start rather than after you've burned through your credits. If you need publish-ready videos with minimal editing, go with Synthesia or Pexo AI. They are the clear default pick for most people leaving Runway. But if you need the best raw output quality and real cinematography control, Runway still wins, and you're paying roughly $0.60 per second of Gen 4.5 output. So go in with your eyes open. One thing that doesn't show up anywhere on the pricing page, the standard plan's entry price sounds reasonable, but that figure works out to roughly $0.60 per second of Gen 4.5 output once you run the credit math. And most people don't realize that until they've already paid, generated 3 clips, and hit their monthly ceiling. If you're also rethinking your AI video stack, check out the video I did on the best Kling alternatives for AI video, because Kling came up in this comparison more than once, and the full breakdown shows exactly where it wins and where it doesn't, which is a pretty different picture than the hype suggests.